Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of the Dr. Quack Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Quack.
And I'm the important one, Mr. Mayhem, and welcome to Clash of the Champions 9, a.k.a. Clash of the Tag Teams.
Oh, my God. Yeah, this was so great. So...
The main event was good.
Okay, we'll get into that.
The main event was good. I'm sure even you gave it over 3 stars.
All right, well, we'll talk about that later. But, yeah, this show here, Clash of the Champions 9, took place in Troy, New York on November 15th, 1989.
Yeah, there's something about wrestling in the number 9. WrestleMania 9. Starrcade 89. 92 to 95. Something with the number 9 in wrestling don't belong together.
Yes. Let's get into this because you had on commentary, you had the great Gordon Solie and the younger Jim Ross.
The great Gordon Solie and the great Jim Ross, and they needed someone else because they're both play-by-play guys. Neither one of them were great at commentary. They had Gordon Solie doing commentary, and he rambled forever. They needed someone in the middle who was actually a worker to help them out.
Yes, they did. On ring announcing, who do we have there?
We had Gary Michael Capetta, and we had 3 referees here. 2 of them we're very, very familiar with, Nick Patrick and Tommy Young. And the third one, they brought in, he was an actual referee that did territorial work, and he came in, he was trying to get into the national exposure. He was okay. He really didn't fit the mold of a referee, and that's Al Stevens.
Yeah. Let's move on here to the opening match, shall we?
It wasn't horrible.
Jesus, he's already defending it. I'm just over here.
Yeah. I'm already defending it because you're poo-pooing, and that's what you do.
When it sucks, it deserves.
That's true.
But the fabulous Freebirds, Michael Hayes and Jimmy Garvin taking on the Road Warriors.
With Precious Paul Ellering.
Yes.
Now, I liked the setup, even though it was not conducive to the way it worked. Now, the way this was set up is they had a big steps up with lights on it, and there was a display that would open, and then you got to the end of that, and you went down this walk ramp like it was a handicap ramp, but it didn't actually work in the wrestling world. I liked the setup of it. But when you have guys like the Road Warriors who charge the ring, have to carefully step down the steps so they don't fall down, they may have wanted to do a little bit better idea with the open. But I liked the concept of putting the guys up so they looked big. I liked that concept. But this was really not the best opener. They were trying to put over that the Freebirds were a strong contender, that the Road Warriors had competition, and it just didn't work because Hawk ended up lifting Tommy Young and moving him out of the way for a disqualification in a very lackluster 2-star performance.
Yeah, that's what I gave it, 2 stars here. I mean, this could have been better. I mean, you had 2 quality veteran tag teams in there. This should have been better. But, you know, this was probably a show where they got paid a lot less, so I'm betting they didn't put as much effort into this match.
Yep, and the funny thing about this, at the end of this match, Gordon Solie and Jim Ross, who didn't work together a lot, they were getting ready to set up the next thing, which I know you didn't write down, was the interview segment where Jim Ross interviewed Terry Funk. But they had open production comments, like they forgot to turn off the microphone of Jim Ross saying, okay, you take these guys into commercial. I'm getting ready to go talk to Terry Funk.
Yes.
So they forgot to push the mute on the microphone button.
Oh, my God. Yeah, some of the things in this show, production value-wise, was very horrible, even for its time.
And the Terry Funk promo, I just mentioned it mostly to signify that. Terry Funk is a good promo guy.
Yes.
He's really good at building a story and building interest. So it was worth noting. If nothing else, go watch the Terry Funk promo. It's really good to set up the main event later. So that's the only reason I mentioned it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Next match here.
Well, since I know you didn't write it down. Then they went to Bill Apter. And they did a couple of awards that were voted. And these were not kayfabe. These were legitimate votes. So they brought Bill Apter from Pro Wrestling Illustrated to give the NWA/WCW award for the most popular wrestler in the NWA, which was Sting. And the Editor's Award for the Wrestler of the Decade, which went to Ric Flair. And it's going to be important a little bit later on, but they both got trophies. Moving on.
Moving on. Match 2.
You need me to do it?
No. Doom! You know, Doom 1 and Doom 2. Yes, they didn't even have names yet. They were taking on Eddie Gilbert and Tommy Rich.
Yeah, Doom was not brand new, but this is the first time they appeared on a national stage.
Oh, yeah, don't let me forget, with Woman.
Yes, and Doom is Ron Simmons and Butch Reed. Now, before this match started, Woman cut a promo backstage, pre-filmed one, about some mysterious big surprise for the Steiner brothers. We'll get into that because that person appeared on this show. And it was nice to see Woman. She had a really good cadence in the way she talked. But she was the wrong manager for this one. They eventually moved on to Teddy Long and had more success. She wasn't the right fit for this, for Doom, what they were trying to do with it. Against a guy I can't stand watching in the ring. He may be a nice guy. I don't know him. You know him pretty well. Tommy Rich. And while he was great, for some reason in this match, he was jobber to the stars. Hot stuff, Eddie Gilbert.
Yeah.
The match was actually decent. It wasn't horrible. This would have been a better open than the first one, because that one led more to storyline. This one was just a better action match. I went 2 1/4. It wasn't horrible.
Yeah, I went 2 stars. This whole show up until the main event for me was just like, oh my God, how much torture can a man go through?
Well, we could go through torture because we got another segment coming up, so we'll finish your thought.
Yeah, just go ahead, man.
All right, so then we get Jim Cornette, babyface Jim Cornette, doing a Cornette TV show segment a la Miz TV, a la Peep Show, and all those other things. And he's interviewing the Steiner brothers. The reason this one's significant is this is where we first learned the name of that move that Scott Steiner does, the running hurricanrana, where they run into him and he catches them with his legs and flips them over. This is the first time they call it the Frankensteiner. That's the only reason I brought it up, because, again, it has a little bit of historical significance.
Yes. This is almost like watching primetime wrestling with Sean Mooney and Tony Schiavone hosting this together.
Are you calling me Sean Mooney? Am I the one we're throwing it back to talk about the Royal Rumble for the next 5 episodes?
That's what it feels like. But
gee, thanks.
But moving along here, yeah, the Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane with Jim Cornette taking on the Dynamic Dudes, Shane Douglas and Left Foot Laryngitis, otherwise known as Johnny Ace.
Yeah, this one was kind of... There's a lot of backstory going on with this. As we talked about in Clash of Champions 7, it was odd to see the Midnight Express babyfaces hanging out with the Dynamic Dudes. Well, the story was that, while Jim Cornette was still the manager of the Midnight Express, he was molding and mentoring the Dynamic Dudes. And after Cornette didn't come down to the ring with either of them because he was coming back from his TV segment. He comes down and sits in a neutral corner. And there's several times you see Bobby Eaton or Stan Lane trying to direct Jim Cornette to come over to their corner, and he wouldn't do it. And this match really wasn't bad. They did the smart thing. They kept Laurinaitis on the apron most of the time. Shane Douglas took most of the abuse. When Johnny Ace came in, the thing was Johnny Ace and Stan Lane had this feud. It was actually a feud in real life. They didn't like each other in real life. But that was the feud, was that Stan Lane didn't trust Johnny Ace and his motives. So that was the thing. When Johnny Ace came in, it was done appropriately. It was well timed. And then at the end, we get the nice swerve where Jim Cornette comes in, tries to stop Johnny Ace from attacking Stan Lane, and then waffles Johnny Ace in the back, or Shane Douglas in the back, and they pin Shane Douglas, showing that it was a swerve all along, in a nice 2.5-star match. I didn't mind this one.
Yeah, this was okay. I'm about with you on that, 2.5 stars. I mean, this was a little better. Thank God for Cornette and the Midnight Express being there, but God, you know, okay. Yeah. I'm moving on here to my 2-finger salute, and there is no interruption here. Thank God. because we had Dr. Death Steve Williams taking on the Super Destroyer, otherwise known as Jack Victory. There's a reason why I'm giving this a two-finger salute. Couple reasons. One, this match was really short and there was almost no purpose to it. Secondly, this is number 9 on the Clash of the Champions, and this is Jack Victory's 4th different version of a masked wrestler. I'm like, come on, man. Look, they didn't want to show you on TV because you were so bad. And that gets my two-finger salute.
There's one more thing I'm surprised you didn't give it the two-finger salute. Here you go, Norman.
Yeah.
We get Norman in November.
Yeah.
In November, coming to the ring as Santa Norman. It made no sense. He gave presents to people. He gave a little action figure to Dr. Death Steve Williams. The whole episode, not horrible, but filler.
Yes. Filler.
It was a 2-star match. This was a filler that did not need to exist.
Yeah, I gave it 1.5. That's how much I loved it.
I was happy to see Dr. Death healthy and doing good and doing the big Oklahoma Stampede on Jack Victory. So that's why I gave it 2.
Yeah, and then moving along here, we had the Steiner brothers taking on the Skyscrapers.
Oh, man.
Yeah, Sid Vicious and Dan Spivey.
Yeah.
No Mark Calloway yet.
Yeah, and Dan Spivey was not the first member of the Skyscrapers. This is with Teddy Long. The first member of the Skyscrapers was a guy named Brian Clark.
Yep. Yes.
Adam Baum, who went from being the Night Stalker to a member of the Skyscrapers to a nuclear disaster. He just sucked all the way around.
Yes.
Now, I hate to say this. The Skyscrapers had potential to be a really, really good team and an influential team in the wrestling career. They're both well over 6 foot tall, 6'8", 6'9", 6'7", 280, 285 pounds, well-built guys, but they were booked so horribly. When you got monsters like this coming to the ring in assless chaps and black leather vests with no emotion walking to the stage, they don't sell. They were the black tights and black boots Steve Austin that truly had no chemistry and no motivation. They sucked.
Weird thought here. Is that where the American Badass came from, the Skyscrapers? Because Undertaker always wore assless chaps.
Probably.
See?
But they came to the ring. There was no emotion. They walked to the ring like they were robots. And it really, really hurt the image of the Skyscrapers. They could have been a great team. If they would have been booked similar to the Brothers of Destruction, they would have been an awesome team. Taking on Rick and Scott Steiner. Now, we get to find out who that mysterious person is that woman talked about. It was a guy named Nitron who was her bodyguard. He was played by somebody you guys know in other ways as Tyler Mane. He was the original Sabretooth in the first X-Men. He was Michael Myers in the Rob Zombie version of Halloween. He's done many other movies. He is a truly large man. He is taller than Sid Vicious. He is taller than Dan Spivey. He's huge, but he's even less talented in the ring. I went 1 3/4. This was a very sloppy mess. Dan Spivey was actually not a great worker in the United States. He went to Japan, he knew how to work, but he came to the United States and all of a sudden his IQ dropped 50 points and he couldn't hit a drop kick because he missed Scott Steiner by this much.
Yeah.
I went 1 3/4. It set up other stuff. The reason this was Clash of the Tag Teams is because on Starrcade in 3 weeks, they were going to have a fatal 4-way tag team match between the Road Warriors, Rick and Scott Steiner, the Skyscrapers, and the P.S. Hayes and Jimmy Garvin, the Freebirds. That's what they were setting up with this. So as we said before, this was free TV, free advertisement for their pay-per-views. But God, we didn't need to see all this on the same show.
No, we didn't. Any more segments in here?
No, there's no more segments.
Thank God. I'm telling you, normally I care about the segments, but this show I just did not. Moving along, Lex Luger taking on Brian Pillman for the NWA United States title. And I actually enjoyed this match, I'll tell you. I actually did. Brian Pillman, very young here. I think he was in with his first 6 months, I want to say, within the company. But him and Luger actually look decent here. And that's scary for me to say about Lex Luger, that he's one of the better matches on this show. I went 2 3/4 stars. I actually felt like this was a very good match. And it was a good semi-main.
It was a good semi-main. I hate to say this because we bashed Lex Luger at length. I went 3 stars.
Oh my God!
This was a great match. I didn't hear "ow" once.
He actually worked.
It was a good, solid, worked match. Even the ref bump, although they screwed up the spot getting into the ref bump was done appropriately.
Yes.
It was done well. The chair shot was delivered well. Even Sting coming down there and having to save Brian Pillman afterwards all worked well. It was all well set up. Nick Patrick did a good job with this match. Sting did a good job. Luger did a good job. Pillman did a great job. I went 3 stars.
Okay, fine. I'll go 3 stars with you, and that's very begrudgingly. But anyway.
Trust me, I hated writing it down. My hand was quivering and shaking trying to write it. See, that is not how I normally make a 3. That's pretty shaky.
That is true. Now we're going to move into the Quack Attack here. The main event. That's right, because that is my Quack Attack here, because this obviously was the best match on the card. It is the only memorable match on the card, and I'm talking about Ric Flair, Terry Funk with Gary Hart in the I Quit match. And I will tell you, this match here was a classic. This is how you work. Not just work in the ring, work the crowd. They were emotional towards this. And the ending, that there was something worth seeing. That was definitely just something that made you excited to watch. You know, Terry Funk, being a crazy man himself, pulled himself together and shook his hand at the end.
Yeah, this was the reason that I was hoping this would be on the run sheet. I had forgot about all the other matches except this one.
See, that's why we got pizza last show.
This match is so memorable. Even the build-up to it was all so memorable. And they went 18 and a half minutes in an I Quit match, and they worked it well. Jim Ross was the right person to play-by-play. Gordon Solie said very little in this one, which I hate to say that. Either one of them would have been great on play-by-play, but Jim Ross was the right choice for this one. The action was good. It was solid. Gary Hart's JTEX Corporation, we saw them at the end. That was Muda. And the Dragon Master, who was in Japan as Kendo Nagasaki. That's if you're ever wondering why the Dragon Master. Well, that's why. But this was a well-told story from beginning to end. They kept putting over the injuries. It wasn't a Flair typical match of he jumped immediately on the leg. He worked his way towards it. Terry Funk worked his way from the arm to the neck. 4 stars.
Yeah, I actually went 4 1/4, but either way, I can see that definitely over a 4-star match. This is one of the more memorable ones from Clash of the Champions if you ask people what they remembered, because it was great. And that's the end of our show. Thank you, God, for that. We're going to move on to the final Clash of the Champions. It's our final episode on Clash of the Champions, and it is the final Clash of the Champions. Finally.
The final WCW version of the Clash of Champions.
Yes, final WCW Clash of the Champions. I'm Dr. Quack.
And I'm the important one, Mr. Mayhem, and we're going to see you next week before our vacation.
I'm going to get a beer.